Children today are the most supervised, structured, and indoor generation in history, and also the most anxious, disconnected, and overwhelmed. That is not a coincidence. Redream education isn't just about changing education. It's about changing and restructuring and redreaming childhood itself. In today's podcast, I'm going to be speaking with you about a very phenomenal book called The Indoor Epidemic. And I believe that this information is exactly why micro schools exist and how we really are transforming how children learn, where they learn. And not only is it about learning, but it's also about their health, physically, mentally, their happiness, and their memories, as well as freedom. Welcome to the Redream Education Podcast. I'm Mackenzie Oliver, micro school founder, educator, coach, and believer in the power of starting small, dreaming boldly, and rebuilding the future of education one courageous step at a time. If you're here, it's because something in your life, your classroom, your family, your child, your community, or your calling is asking for a new dream, a wiser dream, a redream. This podcast is where we challenge the old models, rethink what learning can be, and build innovative pathways for children, families, and communities. Each week, you'll gain the systems, strategies, stories, and soul work you need to design personalized learning, understand how education is changing for the better, start or scale a micro school, lead with confidence, make a change for your family, and create an education model that actually works for today's world. Because you aren't just dreaming of something different, you are building it. This is a space where we re-envision what school can be, reimagine how children learn, and rebuild the systems that were never designed to meet the needs of our future and current generation. This is a podcast to redream education as we share insights, strategies, stories, and tools to teach our children better, transform learning at home, support innovative education models, and invest financially or personally in the future of students everywhere. Because you aren't just dreaming about a better education, you're part of the movement to create it. Welcome to the Redream Education Podcast. This is where the future begins. Education is a powerful tool, and books are an incredible resource for parents, for our children, for us as a society. And I recently came across an incredible book called The Indoor Epidemic by Dr. John LaPuma. And the indoor epidemic is truthfully for parents and teachers and how children can start an outdoor revolution. You can order this book on Amazon. You can also Google this book, The Indoor Epidemic by John LaPuma. You can listen to it for free on Audible. There's an ebook, there's a soft cover, there's a hardcover. And on Dr. John LaPuma's website, he says, "You're not burned out, you're just indoors." The title of his book also reads as a subtitle, actually, 93% inside still sleep, focus, and years. This is so relevant to our children. The 7% outdoor prescription restores our children and ourselves. I want to share with you years ago, when I first became a teacher, I was probably within my first 5 years of teaching. I had already had my daughter, Jalen. She's 17 now. 18. Wow, she's 18 now. And I was speaking with some teachers who were also a part of our school district's early childhood development in Missouri. They were discussing some key profound insights for students, children, families that they would go do home visits for early childhood education. So there was a program where the teachers would go visit homes and would teach the parents how to teach their children. This is no matter what class these parents were in, high class, middle class, low class, it didn't matter. It was a free service for these children and families. And what they found was a very strong correlation between the children who could not read or were having a difficult time learning their letters and sounds with how much sunlight they were not receiving. They had explained to me that when they entered homes that were dark, the windows were covered by curtains, the blinds were not open, almost every single one of those children had a very difficult time retaining information, learning their letters and sounds, and being able to understand map concepts. They would also report that the families who had their windows open, there was a lot of sunlight, natural sunlight coming into the house. The children were less anxious and they had better retention and caught on to concepts much faster. That message stuck with me for the past 15 years. I have not stopped thinking about that one piece of information that transformed my ideas for teaching and learning within my classroom, but also for my own daughters. I know this is specifically thinking about indoors, but how much it correlates to what matters in families when it comes to having natural light and being exposed to such the glorious radiation of the sun. That one piece of knowledge has transpired into why we at Lighthouse Learning cultivate 2 hours of time for students to be outdoors, bare minimum. Children are indoors 90% of the time within our nation and across the entire globe. Most children are sitting for 6 to 8 hours a day. They are disconnected from sunlight, from nature, and from movement. We all know that children today are spending less times outdoor, and it may really shock you that children spend less time outdoors than prison inmates. Sunlight exposure helps to regulate the circadian rhythm. It helps to help with sleep cycles, and natural light boosts serotonin, mood, and vitamin D, which is for immune and brain health. It is no secret that outdoor learning improves focus, memory, behavior, and emotional regulation. Just to break it down, sunlight matters because vitamin D, as I mentioned, helps with brain development, your immune system. Blue light from the sun helps regulate sleep and energy, eye development. It reduces the risk of childhood myopia, which I am very, very excited to speak about in just a moment, and mental health, lowering anxiety and depression. Inside learning looks like control, and outside learning looks like freedom. And freedom is where growth actually happens. In this episode, I'm going to share with you what parents can do practically, and hopefully this will empower you for your own family, for your own children. And to also share, I know as a school leader, how important this has been for our own children and staff. So at Lighthouse Learning, 2 hours of children being outside is not extra. We have found that it is absolutely essential. So when parents drop their children off between 8:30 and 9, that is a crucial time for students to be outside playing without having any task orientation. And in the book, Indoor Epidemic, Dr. John LaPluma talks about how important it is that we are outside without responsibility. And he was sharing in one of the podcasts that I had listened to about even as a mom, we take our children on walks, we're watching them ride their bikes, we're taking the dog for a walk, we're working in the garden, mowing the lawn, taking care of pruning our plants, whatever it may be as far as a responsibility, it's work outside. There is a task, there is an accomplishment that is related to being outside. But when we are just outside enjoying, we receive even more benefits. So as an example today, I have felt very, very passionate about having a house with a lot of windows and having a lot of natural light come in. And I've not always been able to do that. I've mentioned many, many times on this podcast, my husband and I moved from Missouri. We had quite a bit of lighting in our house in Missouri. When we moved to Florida, we lived with my in-laws for quite some time. We moved into a condo, then we moved into a house. And while there was a lot of windows, the way that the house was structured, it didn't seem like there was a lot of natural light being able to be filtered through. So when we just bought our house last year, one of the most passionate components that I wanted in a home was to have a lot of windows, because I know how much it helps myself and my daughters as well as my husband to be able to have that natural light. Side note, when we took my daughter a couple of months ago up to Tallahassee to look for colleges and to look for apartments, she said, "Mom, I just cannot see myself in any of these apartments. They are so dark. I don't think it would be good for my mental health." So I wanted to share that with you because I cannot tell you how many times I would go into her room in the morning and raise the blinds and open the blinds, and she would say, "Close the blinds. I don't want any light." So if that is your child in and of itself, hold on. There is hope that they will one day know how important it is how important it is that they receive proper amount of sunlight. But in the book Indoor Epidemic, Dr. John Paluma talks about how, yes, it's great to be able to drive your kids to school, to see the sun, to have the windows rolled down, to have the beautiful light come in from your home, but it is not the same. And it really doesn't have as many, if any at all, benefits as actually being out in the sunlight. Now, again, there is this awe moment, which does help with our brain and chemicals in the neuroscience. So it's not that it's null and void and it doesn't matter. It's that the benefits that he's speaking of in his book and what I'm speaking of are quite different. So students arrive from 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning. The students are outside, they're playing, they're resetting their central nervous system. Some classes even stay out till 9:15. So bare minimum, we have 30 minutes. We encourage our parents to be there by 8:30 so their children can play outside unstructured. Then we have lunch outside for 30 minutes, plus another set of time for kids to play outside right after lunch or before lunch. So they are outside for a total of another hour. Then again, at the end of the day, before parents pick their children up, students are outside as well. Some for 15 minutes, some for 30. And then in addition to students going outside throughout the day to learn with their teacher. We also have our enrichment program on Thursdays and Fridays where the students do typically stay outside until around 9:15. They come inside for deep breathing, stretching, calming exercises. They go back outside for another 45 minutes for PE. They have lunch outside. They have recess outside. They're outside at the end of the day. And many may look at this as we may have because we grew up probably in a traditional setting where you get to school, you go sit in the hallway. When the bell rings, you walk to your classroom. You have lunch indoors in the cafeteria. You go outside for 30 minutes, and then you go back and you finish the day in the classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, please hear our cry for help for our children, because when we were growing up, we also came home and played outside and were to be home by the time the streetlights came on. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening in homes today with parents working indoors, with the commute to and from school, to and from work, the iPhones, the computers. It's not the same, which is why it's critical that our schools and our learning environments have as much time outside as possible. And while learning outside is extremely beneficial, what about children being able to be outside? The research shows it literally refreshes their brain. It allows for children to reset their parasympathetic nervous system, which is critical for learning and resting and digesting, calming the body after stress. Have you ever had a stressful moment taking your children to school? Reducing heart rate, promoting digestion, energy storage. I have spoken before about how both of my daughters started out in our micro school, and it was so foundational that we started our mornings outside. So they would be playing outside whenever the students would first arrive. Then we would all go on a morning walk. We would do exercises in the morning. It was precious. And my youngest daughter, she stayed with us for 5 years in our micro school. That is how her body has learned to adapt and to regulate itself. When she went to public school this year, I truthfully believe one of the most. If you are a teacher, a homeschooling parent, or a brand new micro school founder who is trying to figure out what comes next, you need to hear this. Micro School Masterminds is the community and coaching program I wish I had when I first stepped out of the classroom and built our micro school. Yes, straight from the living room to now nearly over 100 students thriving in year 6. This is where teachers and founders finally get the roadmap, the support, and the systems to create a thriving micro school without burning out. Inside Micro School Masterminds, you will receive weekly live coaching with me and other powerful professionals who discuss strategy, solutions, and provide personal support. You also receive step-by-step modules to build your school legally, financially, and operationally. Marketing enrollment done for you with training that works even if you've never advertised before, and you can learn this on your own time through our Micro School Masterminds classroom modules. Worried about multi-age classrooms or curriculum? We've got you covered with our curriculum planning resources. You receive templates, checklists, scripts, and systems for marketing, financial systems, operations, community building, and growth. Everything is ready for you to plug in and go. Most importantly, you have access to a powerful community of other founders who understand your dreams and your fears. Whether you're starting really slow, or you're still teaching the classroom and you're dreaming of breaking free, or you're already running your micro school but feeling overwhelmed, trying to figure out also how to build a hybrid program. This is a place where you gain clarity, confidence, and of course, a plan. Because you don't have to do this alone. You deserve guidance, you deserve support, and your micro school deserves to grow with ease, not chaos. If you're ready to redream education and take the next step, join us inside Micro School Masterminds, where together we are building this education system better. Head over to redreameducation.com/masterminds to learn more. Again, that's redreameducation.com/masterminds. One of the most difficult moments she had, and she expressed this in many ways, is how long she had to sit at a desk and be inside. And in her middle school, 95% of the classrooms don't have windows. This absolutely took a toll on her mental health, in addition to a numerous amount of things that were also happening with being in this school setting. Side note, we're still working on it. We're still working on it, and it's definitely a price that we have to pay to be a part of a free educational system. So stay tuned. We'll let you know what the final decision will be moving forward. I know I have my philosophy of teaching. I have my philosophy of education, and it is absolutely critical that we as parents continue to give our children what we know is best for them. So to combat that, Juliana, our daughter, she is in an outdoor sport where she practices for at least 2 to 2.5 hours in the evening when it's still light outside. So that is definitely very, very helpful. When we first started our micro school, in addition to being outdoors in the morning, we would pack up our lunch boxes and head to the park each day for lunch, which was in our neighborhood. Yes, I had a microwave at home, but because we had 7, 8 children the very first year, we didn't have time to warm up our lunches. Otherwise, we would have been sitting at lunchtime for 25 minutes waiting for everyone to warm up their lunch, and we wouldn't all be able to eat together. So the children had to pack their lunches, the families packed their lunches, and we would head to the park. When we moved out of our home after year 3, we had moved into a church that had a couple of microwaves. So it was a hot commodity that students could warm up their lunch, and how exciting could that be? But we started having lunch indoors, and I did not like it. But we didn't have a place necessarily outdoors where the students could play and eat like we do now. So for 2 years, we went the convenience route and we had the microwaves. We had students standing in line, warming up their lunch, because obviously we do not have a cafeteria at our school. And this was just becoming one of those invisible, gnawing, agitating moments, because I thought, well, I just feel like they're wasting so much time. They're standing in front of the microwaves. There's all this radiation that they're being exposed to. The macaroni and cheese has exploded. One time someone caught the microwave semi on fire. We've got to get back to the basics here. So we started having lunch outside. 50% loved it. 50% hated it. Yet, when we first started our micro school for the first 3 years, it wasn't a problem at all. Now that we had went to this little convenience route, now it became a problem. Yet the children were so excited. Maybe some didn't like it. Some of them had a little bit of an adjustment period, but it helped reduce the amount of noise that was in the cafeteria, so to speak, in this game room that we have where the students were eating lunch. It was less overstimulating. It allowed for our students to start packing more fruits, more vegetables, more rice, and foods that were good for them instead of Hot Pockets and macaroni and cheese and ramen noodles. It allowed for, yes, the convenience to be gone, but also for students and families to rethink what they were providing for food that wasn't convenient anymore. And I know convenience does matter, but when we're talking about the health of our children and not standing in front of the microwave and being able to be outside and enjoy their food underneath sunlight, it actually is proven that when you eat food underneath sunlight or outside, your digestion increases by 90%. The facts are in, yet we still struggle with finding an adequate amount of time for students, children to be outdoors, which is why I'm so passionate that we can have alternative education models to allow this for our students. When students are outside, whether it be outdoor enrichment or they have movement-based learning, nature integration, we have a botany class. We have times where children go outside and they are putting together food and they're putting together resources from nature to build projects. We're receiving this whole child development. We don't need to add more to our children's lives. We need to give them back what was never supposed to be taken away. And the core idea here is that education isn't failing, it is outdated. We have an industrial model versus a modern child. We have standardization versus individuality. We have compliance versus creativity. And your child isn't the problem. Different doesn't mean deficient. And you're not, as a micro school leader, an alternative. You are ahead. As we relate back to the indoor epidemic and what we took from childhood and how to give it back, I wanted to share with you some practical ways that parents can help their children at home if you are not receiving from a school, from your child's learning environment, at least 2 hours of students being outside. And that is actually something that Dr. John Paloma writes about in his book, is at least 2 hours of no responsibility outside. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to have had the experience, the discernment, and the opportunity to naturally provide that for our students without having even known that it needed to be 2 hours. And I feel so passionate and empowering that I want to make it even more. And when parents come to us and question you about eating outside or the amount of time that children have outside, there is research backing this. You can find it all over the internet. You can find podcasts. You can go back and cite the evidence that is even in this book, The Indoor Epidemic. I wanted to definitely touch base before we get into some practicality here about myopia. Myopia is nearsightedness where kids can see close but not far. Myopia rates have skyrocketed in recent decades, projected to affect almost 40% of children globally by 2050. When we increase outdoor time from 1 to 3 hours a day, we reduce myopia risk by 50%. Just adding in 1 extra hour outside daily can reduce the risk by 45%. Children with more screen time, less outdoor time have significantly higher rates of myopia, and even 40 minutes of outdoor time added to school daily reduced myopia incidences. And all of this was found and cited by a study called The Relationship Between Screen and Outdoor Time. And this is through the National Library of Medicine. The reason why students and children are having difficulties with myopia is that their eyes focus on distance, which is a natural development when they are outside. Sunlight triggers dopamine in the retina, which slows abnormal eye growth. And light exposure is way brighter than indoors, which is critical for eye development. And this can be found in Frontiers Hypothesis and Theory article through Ophthalmology. When kids are inside, constant close-up focus, like on screens and books, and low light exposure, limited visual range, the result is that the eye literally elongates incorrectly. So the drop line here is, we are designing environments that are reshaping our children's natural biology. There are some books that I think would be very useful. There is a book called Last Child in the Woods. This introduces a nature deficit disorder. There's a book called Balanced and Barefoot, which is movement and outdoor play and brain development. And then, of course, a very widely known book called The Anxious Generation, Screens, Indoor Life, and the Mental Health Crisis. So parents, what can we do? Micro school leaders, what can we do? Daily, 1 to 2 hours of outdoor time minimum, non-negotiable. For us at Lighthouse Learning, it's 2 hours minimum, non-negotiable. And then if a parent can take their children outside when they get home for another hour, golden. This morning, I took my daughter outside. We had breakfast on our back porch and no screens, 10 minutes. It wasn't even 10 minutes. I think it was 7 minutes. But in the book, Dr. John Paluma does discuss at least 10 minutes of sunlight first thing in the morning. And we sat outside. I watched a squirrel climb along the fence. I heard wind chimes. I heard the wind blowing. I could hear the birds chirping. I did hear a siren, which allowed me to stop for a moment, pray for the people that were in need, and to also pray a prayer of protection over my family. I was watching my dogs run and play. I watched my little puppy grab a stick. I started to stretch a little bit. I felt more free and more open. So even possibly having lunch, dinner, breakfast outside is such a great start. If you could have morning sunlight within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, that is ideal. Of course, we have to throw in screens. When we reduce prolonged close-up time, we are giving our children back their eye development in such a profound way. There is a 20-20-20 rule. For every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away and take 20 minutes off the screen. So 20 minutes of iPad time, stop, look out. Hey, Lucy, look outside. What do you see across the street? Oh, that's awesome. Now let's go have 20 minutes of outside time and then you can come back. This is a very great strategy. And of course, lifestyle, family walks, outdoor meals, weekend nature rhythms where you spend more time outside on the weekend. Most importantly, I hope that all of us advocate for outdoor learning. I hope that we all advocate for our children being able to play before school starts, before the day ends with their friends, to eat lunch outside, to have recess, to have moments of students being outside to check on the plants that they've gardened, to have a scavenger hunt for their academics. Let's advocate for this for our students, for our children, and let's be so grateful that they're all that there are alternative models out there for children to be able to have a life that they were truly meant to have. And parents, we know the world can feel heavy and it can feel tough. And this is exactly why being able to go outside, talk to your children, sitting on the driveway, letting them debrief from the day instead of going straight inside, putting their backpacks down, having a snack, have them drop their backpacks at the garage door, get on their bikes, you bring out their snacks to the driveway and sit and talk about the day. I pray that this has blessed you and that it has inspired you. And I hope to see you outdoors more. It is time to redream education and to actually take that next step. Join us in Microschool Masterminds every single week for live group coaching, self-paced modules, and of course, a powerful community. Head on over to redreameducation.com/masterminds and join us in our free Facebook group at Redream Education Microschool Community. To learn more, that's redreameducation.com/masterminds.